everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Jamie University. It is Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for joining us. We are going to talk. We're going to talk about some recruiting updates. We're going to talk about, if we get to it, right? Who knows where the show is going to go today, Jamie? But we're gonna try to talk about replacing Michael Mayer and Isaiah Foskey in the bowl game. Obviously, very key players. And then listener, viewer comments, whatever you guys want to talk about. So thanks for joining the show. If this is your first time and you've never seen us before, if you're watching on replay or anything like that, you like what you hear, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. And I think that's all the intro stuff. Go to IrishSportsDaily.com and check out all the content. There's a lot of updates that are going up almost on an hourly basis almost. So there's a lot going on there. But Jamie, I think we need to start the show with what is top of mind for everyone, and that is the commitment of Spencer Schrader, the kicker, the kicker. He's Notre Dame's got a kicker. They got a kicker, Jamie. And you know what? You need a good, reliable kicker, Jamie. And that's where. No, I'm just kidding. All right, we're gonna talk about Peyton Bowen. He is the topic of the day. 5-star safety out of Denton, Texas, been committed to Notre Dame since January 1st, 2022. And this is my take, Jamie. Okay? This is my take. It's a good take, too. So in a previous life, I was in sales. Okay? And one thing they always taught us in sales is that you need to know exactly what it is that you're overcoming in order to close the deal. Right. And I think what happened yesterday, which it seems like there was a move made by, Oregon and Oklahoma, lot of stuff going around, talk that maybe he wouldn't stay committed to the class through the night. It seems that he is still committed to Notre Dame. At the very least, Marcus Freeman is going to, as of right now, as we are talking, is going to conduct the in-home visit with him that was scheduled for tonight. That is going to happen. Or that is scheduled still. They're still planning to do that. That's still going on. And as Matt put it in the update that was posted, and I suggest everyone go to IrishSportsDaily.com and check out his latest update, which was about an hour ago. He said a chip in a chair, which is a poker reference. If you have a chip, you have a chair, you still have a chance to make it happen. And what I would say is Notre Dame needed to know exactly where they stand. And that's how it is in sales. Sometimes you spend a lot of time overcoming what were called shadow objections, which are like, you're talking about what it is, but is it really that? Like, is it really the distance? Is it really like the defense, or is it really something else? Like, what is it really that we're having to overcome? And so I think that's where Notre Dame is now. They know exactly what they need to do, or what the problem is, or what all those other things are, right? And so I think this was a necessary action in order to win the recruitment. Now, I don't know that they're going to win the recruitment. I don't think they're going to. It is my personal opinion, but I think that might have been the case anyway. They were always not in as good a position as maybe they thought, maybe even Peyton Bowen thought. And so they're coming from behind now. They have to come from behind. Marcus Freeman's going to get his chance to sit in the house. So, Jamie, thoughts on it?
Always love coming from behind on a kid who's been committed for like a year. Always good when that happens. I don't know what's going to happen. I think the analogy you used, the sales analogy, I think is appropriate, because you need to know, what you need to overcome to make the sale. And I think that's crucial in any kind of deal you're going to close, right?
Right.
How's the deal going to get closed? And the unfortunate thing is that things change, right? Things change, and what originally got like Peyton Bowen committed to Notre Dame doesn't seem like that is, and maybe not for him specifically, but others around him, it might not be what's motivating the decision now, right? And I mean, that stuff changes all the time, right? Like, I mean, certainly, like that was something with like Keon Keeley, that was with that the whole way. So, I mean, I think one of the things that I'm sure Marcus Freeman and the other coaches that are going to be there are going to remind him why he chose Notre Dame. And if it's just more than about that, then I honestly think, and if that is just not even a factor anymore, then they might as well just go there, eat some food, and just say, "Hey, thanks, great to know you."
Yeah, there's nothing to talk about.
Because that's gotta be the main driver that's pointing back. Like, why did he stay committed this whole time? He could have taken all these free trips.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, let's be honest, he was taking free trips because people find a way to pay for unofficial visits. They pay for these unofficial visits. So I think that, you don't know what's going to happen, but I think one thing from the Keon Keeley thing that really stood out was Notre Dame handled that very poorly. And I don't mean they handled the recruitment poorly. They handled it just fine. That's not their fault that somebody else from his family is trying to, changing the motivation, right? It's changing the motivation. That's not their fault. They didn't have, I mean, Keon Keeley picked Notre Dame because he liked Notre Dame and all of these other things, right? It wasn't nothing that they did was driving him to decommit, but they made a mistake in being like, we're not going to recruit another Viper. We're just going to do this. We're just going to make sure that Keon knows he's the most important guy, whatever. And Keon didn't care about that because he just went to Alabama.
Right.
And I guarantee they're recruiting a ton of pass rushers. That's not a thing for people. And you have to kind of know with all these guys too, if you're a program that's built on competition anyways, that guess what? You're going to have to compete with guys all the way. And that means if you got to take another back, whatever. And I think that helped drive them we got to take more backs in the class because we got to get at least one or two. And then they lose Dylan Edwards, and it sucks because Dylan Edwards is a great player, but it's not as bad because they have Jeremiah Love and Jay Lamar, and maybe Jay Lamar leaves. But if they keep Jeremiah Love, guess what? You're still doing all right, right? And then at safety, like they could have easily just been like, I mean, Adon Schuler and Peyton Bowen. It's a wrap. And that is the Brian Kelly way that he did the entire time. And then it always come down to when it was this kind of situation and they'd lose out on a 5-star or a high recruit kid. And then all of a sudden they're putting all their chips in with one guy. And then so the analogy, a chip in a chair, they're in there, but guess what? They save some. They're not all in.
Like they have a bankroll still available.
They have money there. They have like whatever theoretical
to continue
chips,
the analogy
theoretical chips because they decided to push some over to Benjamin Minich and they decided to push some over here to Brandon Hillman, and Hillman might be offense, whatever. And that's another reason why you take Hillman because he might be offense. He might play safety. He might be a rover, whatever. You take athletes and you stack them on top of each other. And that was something that I think where this class is still going to be good, whether they land Bowen. It can be great if they land Bowen, right?
Yeah.
But if they don't land Bowen, it's still going to be good. And they're still going to have 2 to 3, if you count Hillman, 4-star safeties in the class, which is more than they've ever really done I mean, I can't remember the last time they took that many forced, blue chip safeties in a class. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
They never paired like Kyle Hamilton with another blue chip. Like that didn't happen for them.
Right.
So like they've never really done that. So they're still improving the position. They just might not get a guy who is going to likely be an instant impact guy. Right. And that was like really the smart way to do it. And I think that's a sign that, I mean, Marcus Freeman, he's not a dummy. They've been really smart about how they've approached it. And they've kind of had like made backup plans, but not like, hey, we're going to offer you if this guy decommits. And then all of a sudden it goes to signing day and you get screwed. No, because if that happened, they were going to be left hanging with no one. And they've really been smart about how they've approached it. And because of that, they're still going to be in a good spot no matter what. And I think that's the way to kind of look at it. And yes, they got the chip in the chair. They're there today. And if they get Peyton Bowen, like, oh man, that's just like the sweetest gravy on top of it all, right? But if they don't, I mean, they still got guys that they can develop into really, really good football players.
You're right. They did cover themselves, and that's a credit to them. I mean, they as far as numbers, they did. And obviously the blue chippers you want, but in terms of roster construction, they filled the need at the position. And that's important. I want to welcome John Falco to the show. First time catching you guys live. 'Tis the season to be slacking at work. Love the show. Thanks for all you do. Absolutely. Thanks for joining us live, John. I really appreciate that. Let's get down to some more comments. Greg Bunt thinks we as in Notre Dame, I guess, they land him. So that's good for you. Craig D says, don't count him out. And I think honestly, I will say, it's better. And Matt put it in the post. Like it's Marcus Freeman does give them a shot. Whereas like, BK, they wouldn't have had the relationship. He wouldn't be able to come in.
No.
And
they'd be out. It'd
even
be done.
give it a shot. It would be done. Yeah. Bagman and girlfriends are undefeated. That's not true because Kyle Hamilton had a girlfriend and she did not come to Notre Dame and he did, right? So and Kyle Hamilton could have taken money and he didn't. So
I mean, I'll tell you what. I mean, I think people haven't followed recruiting if they think that Bagmen are undefeated. Girls, Notre Dame would have landed no one.
And as far as Bagman, like Jeremiah Love, look at Jeremiah Love. Oregon was after him, and A&M was after him. He was offered money, and he is. There's a lot,
There's a lot of great players who have played for Notre Dame over the years, who have been offered a lot more to go to other places than Notre Dame, and still chose Notre Dame. So. That's not like that isn't new. I mean, maybe some of these like outrageous numbers and NIL collectives, like some of the stuff that's being thrown out, maybe that's like a little bit new. But even then, it's not like, let's just say like hypothetically, someone is saying like, hey, you're going to get millions of dollars over these 4 years, right? Well, I mean, let's just say that was happening with all these guys at Texas A&M. I mean, they just had 4 5-stars from their last class just go in the portal. So with all those guys, like they just gave up that money, right? Probably because they're going to get paid something else somewhere else, but like probably not as much as they were, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a new world, but it's also at the same time, nothing has changed.
It's not new. It's just, it's kind of more out in the open than it used to be. It's not like a new thing. People have been getting bags for a long time. Irish guy, can you confirm that some NIL money isn't being paid by some schools to players who were promised the money? I can't confirm that. I have heard that.
I mean, that's something
I can't confirm it. Like that's not like I am not involved with it, right? But I've heard from people.
We all know
who have
Greg is the NIL crypto insider who's got all the details on all that. No, but I mean, everyone, I mean, who knows what's real and what's not with that? But I mean, I think Fran Fraschilla put a tweet out there. I mean, he I think is doing it from a basketball perspective. Obviously, he's a basketball guy. So I think, he would know that and hear from people, some of like the parents and kids and whatever who aren't getting that. And I think going back to the summer with Jordan Addison, I mean, that was a thing that was in the summer that was going around. And I mean, I have no idea how true that is allegedly that, the money he was promised, he wasn't getting paid it. And then it was like, is he going to stick at USC? And obviously he did. He had a pretty good season, not the same kind of season that he had before. I mean, he's going to go to the draft no matter what anyways, and still probably be a high pick. But I mean, I don't know. Like, it'll be interesting. I mean, I would love for a guy like Jordan Addison, who's going to be out of it in a month, basically. He's going to be out of college football in a month. I would love to hear what a guy like that has to say about like what happened with him and NIL. Yeah. Is he going to give that interview? Probably not. Those are the kind of guys give that interview like after they're done playing professional football. But I mean, would love to hear that. Or it's going to be somebody who maybe didn't get the money that they were promised, and then they didn't make the league. Right. And then they're going to talk or whatever. So I have a feeling we won't hear real details about that and know exactly until like probably a couple of years.
I have heard things from people who are involved in this stuff, who they have very strong feelings that there's going to be a shoes to drop. Things are going to happen where it's like kids are going to start, trying to bring litigation on people who promised them money. They didn't get it. They're not getting paid and stuff. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on kind of behind the scenes. It's very messy. It's unregulated. Right. And if something is going to be unregulated, like, that's where kind of bagmen, and this is kind of like getting away from the Peyton Bowen thing a little bit. Now we're just kind of moving on to NIL discussion, but it's like when it's unregulated, that means it's not enforceable really by either party, right? If a player gets money and then leaves, if it's not a regulation thing, is the contract enforceable? And that goes both ways, right? So there's going to be a lot of shoes to drop.
I also don't think there's a lot of contracts.
Right, exactly.
Like, people aren't signing contracts for this stuff. It's a lot of handshakes like, hey, you're going to get this. And that's why they can back out on it, right? If like some guy's not performing or something, whatever, that's kind of goes. And I mean, that's no different than how it kind of, always was, really.
Yeah. Do you think, is there, I don't know how to, or why Dan 42, I'll just say it like that. Is there a ceiling on Notre Dame recruiting that fans just need to accept?
I don't know if that's fair, because this is the thing that people point to this. And so if Bowen ends up going to Oregon, let's say that, right? Mm-hmm. Bowen ends up going to Oregon, and let's say Dante Moore goes to UCLA, which would be hilarious. But so say Peyton Bowen ends up choosing Oregon. We already know Keon Keeley went to Alabama. A lot of the guys that were the elite guys, and obviously those two guys, Keeley and Bowen, were in the class, but the other like elite guys that people were talking about before, like Caleb Downs, Samuel Mpemba. These guys names are getting thrown around, and they visited and whatever, and they said nice things about Notre Dame, and maybe Notre Dame was in their top 5 or whatever, but they didn't ultimately, like, Notre Dame really wasn't in it for them in the end, right? And and I think that's always been a thing where Notre Dame hasn't really been able to land those types of guys in forever. And but when you have the two guys committed, who, by the way, Peyton Bowen and Keon Keeley, not 5 stars when they were committed. So they weren't quite where Kyle Hamilton, where he had that meteoric rise, but they were also just, like Keon Keeley was a 3-star when he originally committed, or like barely was ranked, and then rose way up, and then eventually 4-star, and then way up. And then Bowen was a 4-star all the time, and then he's had a monster senior season and has played his way into 5-star status. So, and I think that's what everyone has always worried about. But then, I mean, Kyle Hamilton's a perfect example. Like, that didn't happen with Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
Like, he's stuck. Michael Mayer was a guy who, whatever, right? And I know it's tight end, you and whatever. Still, I mean, you think that people would have offered Michael Mayer money? Like, yeah. So that's one way to look at it. And the other way is, I think because Notre Dame is always reactionary whenever it comes to this stuff. And obviously this isn't specifically Notre Dame, because it's not like Notre Dame is the one who's like, cut the check. We're going to give you the money. It's not them. It's got to be other outside people who pay NIL. And it's funny because there's people who are like involved with NIL stuff for Notre Dame right now. And they're like, we're not going to get into the recruit stuff. Well, if you lose some of these guys and enough, if it happens enough times, and maybe this is enough, maybe it's not, then those guys start getting, they start getting involved.
Yeah. They start saying, you know what? I don't like this. This doesn't feel good. I don't like it.
So I don't know that is going to happen. So that's why I wouldn't say like, this is the ceiling, cap it out, because I don't know if there's not going to be a reaction to it from Notre Dame. Just like how if, it is something that, Marcus Freeman can go and use this now and really say like, listen, because even if they hang on to Peyton Bowen, you can see how it's like hanging by a thread.
Right.
That still should be motivation for them to be like, listen, like, we don't want to have to doing that, because rather than trying to hold on to him, they could have been out trying to get somebody else instead. Right. So I'm interested to kind of see what this changes with Notre Dame, because I don't think, and I already think that Marcus Freeman has raised the ceiling of recruiting. And I'm not just talking about the Peyton Bowens, but look, he's signed way more 4-stars in this class than Brian Kelly really ever did, other than 1 year, 2013. Right. Yeah. So he's already shown that he can kind of do that. And then it's just the next piece, and can the ceiling get raised again? And I don't know. We'll see.
John Falico asks, I'm just going to take the first part because we kind of answered the second part already, even though they are somewhat related. Is there any sense that Notre Dame is willing to loose up transfer requirements for undergrads and or take a bigger step in the NIL game? If not a national championship, just a pipe dream. I think they are going to loosen it up a little bit, transfer requirements. It won't be like, I think you still got to be, in least pretty good standing with your school and that sort of thing. But I think they are going to loosen it up a little bit. The thing with the portal, and we've kind of talked about this before, is that for the major guys that we talked about this kind of on the last show, like the Jordan Addisons and the Caleb Williams and that sort of thing, NIL is tied to them too. So you're kind of dealing with the same problem. But if you have a guy who is let's say there was something with Caleb Smith, the receiver from Virginia Tech, right? There was a little something. He wanted Notre Dame. Notre Dame wanted him. There's a little something with his transfer requirements. They don't quite match up. I think Notre Dame would make an exception for him. Not an exception, but they would make it work. They would work with him. So it's that. But it's not going to be like they're going to loosen up transfer requirements. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to get into the portal and go to Notre Dame. Like, that is not going to happen, right? Like, no. It's just like the portal thing and the NIL thing to an extent, as far as the top players, they are linked. But I think for other players, like the example I just gave, I think that would be a good example of like that's how it could work out. Yeah. All right, let's see some more comments. Top 5 class. It won't be without Peyton Bowen, but that's okay, right? Because look, and I think
even with Peyton Bowen, it might drop out of the top.
Right, Stats Award. Here's the other thing. Stats Award put out, like, if you have 23 5-star corners, you're going to have a highly rated class. But what does that mean for your, like, I think we need to look at Notre Dame's roster and the types of players that they landed in relation to what they needed from the roster, right? You got 2 elite corners. Okay. You got Jaden Osbury and Drake Bowen at linebacker, right? You have the wide receiver. They desperately needed wide receivers. They have 4, right? And so that's what they needed. They got a quarterback in the class, right? You have a speed back in Jeremiah Love. Let's see if they hang on to Jaden Lamar. But so the point is, it's like they had needs that they really desperately needed to fill, and they did. So, and they did get numbers at safety, right? Like Adon Shula is still a good football player, right? Ben Minnick and Brandon Hillman, still good football players, right? It's not like they're not at this point. So, it's just from a number standpoint of what they needed. This is a good class, and like you said, a lot of 4-star players, right? A lot of 4-star players. Is it just me, or is Greg way louder than Jamie? I am not noticing that. Is there anything on your end, Jamie, that you can?
No, it's the same that I always have it. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Hopefully it's louder. not a huge problem. All right. Let's see. I'm hearing so much. Crazy boy. I think there's a question here that I might have missed about whether or not he's still going in the visit. So just to kind of recap what we said at the outset, Marcus Freeman, I think it's Marcus Freeman, Chris O'Leary, and Al Golden scheduled to visit Peyton Bowen tonight as of right now. Obviously, things
Mike
change.
Mickens and possibly Tommy Reese too.
Mickens and Reese. Okay.
Yeah.
So, in other words, the cavalry.
Yeah.
Patrick Henderson is late. Jamie, do you want to yell at me about anything? He hasn't yet.
Yeah. No.
You never know. We still have like 30 minutes to go on this pod. You never know. Chris Tyree might come up. There might be a Jamie, what's another hot button issue that gets you kind of riled up? What gets you riled up?
Let's
push some buttons. People enjoyed that.
You know what? I don't think there really is anything right now. I mean, one thing I will say, okay, here's something that bothers me.
Okay.
That bothers me. And it bothers me that and it has to do with Marist Liufau. And Marist Liufau obviously did not have a great season. I mean, did not live up to expectations.
Yeah.
No one is claiming that. And I think overall in general, the linebacker position didn't live up to expectations. I think that's more than fair. But it's specifically to deal with his blitzing that I'll talk about. And I think there's a lot of people I'm like, man, I just, a lot of people, I don't know if they understand defense that much. Like they don't understand what some of the times when he's blitzing and what the purpose of that is. And some of it is as like where he's just like a plug player. Basically, you're plugging a gap. And obviously you want to be able to like get penetration, do all these kind of things too, right? Like that, get off a block, make a play, all that. But there's a lot of times where he blitzes and his blitz makes the play for somebody else, similar to if Howard Cross or Jason Abalola get penetration up the field and maybe they don't finish and get a tackle for loss, but they're the reason why, say, like Riley Mills is able to make a play, get a run stuff or something, or somebody else, right? Or JD Bertrand or whoever, right? And I'm like, do people not understand how these things works? Like defense is a complementary game. It's complementary. Like this happens, and then if it's like Howard Cross gets double teamed and then he sticks on that and they have to stick on him, well, that leaves JD Bertrand free. Like all of these pieces, there's just a lot of people that don't understand how like the front seven, front six works. And you know what? Like, please, check out Film Don't Lie. Some of the stuff that I do on Irish Sports Daily. Check out some of the tweets I do. You can check out a lot of the stuff that Greg does on Twitter and stuff too. We're here to inform you about these because it does. It bothers me when I'm like, people don't understand this. I'm like, please watch. Like, and it's just, it's a bit infuriating at times. But I'm not even really that fired up about it. But it's just,
well, you're not fired up today because it's so out of. It's so far kind of in the past, but at the time, like, so that right, like a lot of the, why is Marist slamming into the guard every single time? You know, like that sort of thing. And then you kind of have to like, well, he's essentially a 3-tech on this play, right? And he has to rush up field, right? But he also has contain and that sort of thing. Like he's not,
and he has to maintain his gap. And because if he tries to go and get off it, then all of a sudden that leaves a hole. And it's
right. Every blitz is not designed to have someone come free, right? Sometimes you're filling a gap, just like a lot
of times the blitz is set up so someone will have to pick you up and then somebody else will come free. Or it means because he's blitzing, that means Isaiah Foskey is going to get blocked by a tight end. And there's all these other pieces that go along with it. I mean, I'm sure if this was right after a game, I would be a lot more fired up than just being just more of a pet peeve.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, that's not a good enough rant. Sorry,
you know what?
I'll bring it next time. It's got to happen. It's got to be organic. I can't just
make it. Here's the thing with rants. It just has to come from the soul. Yeah. And it can't be, you can't summon it just like, hey, come yell at me about something, right? Like it has to be, like you said, it has to be organic. So maybe you never know, right?
You know,
and that's what
someone throw up a really dumb comment and then I'll get fired up. Okay. Just throw it. Make sure you throw it.
That's why you got to tune in every single time, because you just never know when it's coming. And there's upsetness. All right, Jamie, let's transition off of Peyton Bowen a little bit. Let's talk about how Notre Dame is going to replace. And I'm really kind of intrigued by what Notre Dame is going to do on offense with Michael Mayer sitting out this game. And it happens every single time where I get all excited in my mind about, oh, they could do, you know. Okay.
All year, think about all these different scenarios.
Jamie, this is the one. This could get me just. Hey, listen. This is the one. CFB hurts. We could have gone 11-1 with Phil Jakovic this year if he had stayed. I mean, bro, I have.
If I thought he was being serious, then I could be.
I know he's not, but I've heard that before, and that will drive me.
It is insane.
That will drive me crazy. That will drive me crazy on his third school now. Good Lord.
Yeah.
All right. CFB, he did go for it. All right. What is Notre Dame going to do, James? Because I just think this is like a 31 personnel. Like, let's just bring out all the motions. Let's get the defense moving, because you have Buckner. You know, like I just think you bring out the 31. You send Tyree. You want him in space, Jamie. Send him out there. And because I was watching the Syracuse game again today, and it's just like it's not even just Tyree. It could be anybody, right? It doesn't have to be him. It could be.
First of all, you were watching the Syracuse game again today. Great.
I didn't finish it. I don't have a problem. This is my job, Jamie. This is what we do.
You could have chose any game. You decided to watch the Syracuse game again.
I watched the first half the other day and the second half today. I don't have that much time. I can't just watch a whole game. Anyway, the point is that it's like, please, could we please? And when I say we, I mean just like the royal football, like this is my hobby, Craig. Greg does not need a hobby. This is my hobby. It's for the people, Jamie. All right. Can Notre Dame, the team that I cover, could they please get the ball out on, like, they have all these motions, and Tommy Rees has all these motions, and he sends Tyree out into the flat all the time, especially in a lot of the 21 looks, and especially the 31 looks. They always get it back out there, and they don't really take advantage of that horizontal game. And I think that is one area where it's like, if I was playing against Notre Dame and suddenly they started getting the ball on the perimeter all the time, and it was on a lot of like the corners and the safeties, all of a sudden, like, we're having to tackle in space all the time. Like, you're not expecting that. Like with Notre Dame, you're expecting everything to be condensed in here. And if Notre Dame has said, you know what, in this game, we are going to get the ball outside, and you have to be a horizontal team as well as a vertical team and in the box team, I think that would – it's not something they're practicing against. That's not something they're mentally preparing for. It's probably not in the game plan. Like, that's what I think Notre Dame could do in order to mitigate the fact that you don't have Mayer, you don't have that safety net kind of just hanging over everything. What do you think about that, Jamie?
I mean, I've been for them kind of attacking the perimeter more this entire year, and I don't know why they didn't do a little bit more of it than they did, other than maybe like Drew Pine not being as comfortable with it, like in terms of we saw him like not pull on some RPOs that were pretty obvious pulls and things like that. So I think that's something that maybe with Buckner, I'm assuming Tyler Buckner is going to be the starter in this game. And if it's Buckner or even if it's an Angeli, maybe that's something that's different. And that's just another way they can attack it. And I just think too, you have to find other ways, other than those kind of little, like, especially like a first down, like little Mayer stick route to make it 2nd and 5 or whatever. Like, you got to find other ways to get those yards. Right. So I think that's part of it, but I'm kind of really interested in 3rd down, because I think the sneaky thing about the 2021 team was that they had really kind of 3 good options on 3rd down, right? They had Mayer, they had Kyron Williams, and Kevin Austin, if they felt that they had a one-on-one that they liked there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times too, it wasn't like going vertical or whatever. It was a lot of like comeback routes and stuff like that they would throw that all day, right? They would throw that all day to him, right? So they basically went to the line. Cohen could go to the line and see where the matchup was and take it. And now they are just the opposite of that, because Mayer was obviously, and I think you'd say that Drew Pine probably forced it into Mayer more than he should have. But now that's gone. I think it necessitates them looking for the best matchup that they can find. So I want to know kind of where is there someone who's going to be in this game. And I think we've seen, like, Deion Colsey made some big catches on 3rd down to close the year, started in that Syracuse game, really. Right. And, but if you can, is Deion Colsey going to be one of those guys you would assume, right? Jaden Thomas, right? Chris Tyree, are they going to use him differently in those situations? Logan Diggs, whatever, right? Like, Mitchell Evans had 1 target this whole year, right? Like, are they going to throw him the ball in those situations? Like, I want to know kind of what they're going to do there. Especially when it's not like the play can't be like, and I'm not saying they went up to the line saying like, everybody else go long, Mayer, go short. We're going to hit you. But sometimes it felt like that because, they knew like he's your best player. Of course, you're going to try to get him the ball because you could rely on him. So you got to find other people to rely on. And that's what I'm kind of like most interested in this game. I think run blocking wise, I mean, obviously Evan's still going to play that kind of inline thing, but and I would say Davis Sherwood, I think you're probably going to play way more than you expect, because he's going to play that H-back role. And I mean, I don't think they're going to throw the ball to Davis Sherwood very much. Maybe they leak it out to him once or something like that, but he's definitely going to be doing that kind of thing when they're running like that split flow. Like, it's going to be him.
Yeah. So one thing they did a lot last year, like speaking of 2021, is they had that option route, and they tried it a couple times. They would motion out Kyron, and he would be like behind Mayer. And so Mayer would kind of go in and he would do like a little in route, like maybe 10-yard in route. And then it was an option route with that player. Yeah. I mean, they didn't just do this with Kyron. They did this with Avery Davis as well. And they
that was another guy they had in 2021, right?
They tried it, and that was a very successful play for them. They tried it a little bit this year. I don't think they did it too much with Drew Pine. Maybe it was just something that he wasn't comfortable with, but so they did that on third down, and that's been out of the offense. Another thing they did was they would get in 11, and then they would empty the backfield, so the back would motion towards like the trips or like the field side, and that would isolate a lot of the time Kevin Austin on the boundary. And what would happen is that the backer chased, then it's man, and you have the one-on-one to the other side, you can go to that. And if the backer didn't chase, it's zone, and then you can throw the swing to the back, because that's going to be a zone. You're going to have numbers there. And that's something that you can do with someone like Kevin Austin, someone like, Michael Mayer and that sort of thing. And Kyron Williams, and they don't really have that this year. So it is a good point in third down. Like anything like 3rd and 5 and over is going to be kind of like, you would like to think like, okay, this has been a money down for Deion Colsey, but not with Tyler Buckner. It's obviously was a money down with Michael Mayer, and that is, he's not available. So, what they do in that kind of situation will be, I guess, very telling. And that's one where it's like a lot of the 31, like the stuff that I was talking about before, like that kind of goes out the window in third down, right? Because I don't want to say it's gadget, but it's like, that's not we need to convert a third down. Like that's stuff you do on 1st and 2nd down, so you don't even have to get to third down. So that's part of it. But then you have the addition of Buckner's legs, which kind of brings more of the running game into play too, right? Where you can like 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, maybe even 3rd and 7, like you can still are like a running threat out of that formation. So I
think that the other thing that I think probably, and I think you'd agree with me, that Buckner needs to run more, like as a scrambler, and like take what's there on some of these like 3rd and medium, go get the first down, move the chains, right? Like pull the Ian book, you know what I mean? First read's not there, go. Like, I mean, if you have a hole, right? Obviously you don't just first read whatever and bounce all the time. But like, if you see something, take it, because I mean, that's the best part about your game is your legs right now. It's so take that and do that, because if you take that off the table, it's like, just watch any of like the best quarterbacks, in the NFL that are similar to Buckner in terms of like what they're good at and what they're not. It's like those guys, they run when they get the chance. They always do. They always do. And that's even in the NFL. And obviously those guys ran a lot more in college. So, I do think too that you're going to see probably like some ones that are more passing downs are going to be more rundowns.
Yeah.
That I think you're going to see. And I'm not talking about 2nd and 10 because, but you know what I mean?
Yes. Because passing down, you'll get favorable looks, and that's what you want, right? Like you run into a favorable look. And then you could be like more aggressive on 4th down, right? Like I don't have a problem with that. The other question I had for you is like, so there's 2 ways for me, or in my opinion, to go about it. Is this a win by any means necessary situation? Which is like, if it takes running Buckner 25 times, I don't think it does, but just I'm over exaggerating to make the point. If it takes that, do you do it versus we need to find out about Buckner and we're going to throw him a lot more than we normally would because we need to know what we have here? Like, what do you think what if you were to lean one way, like, because I think it is kind of hard to split the baby, right? Like you do want to find out about him, but at the same time, like you want to win. So like
I think you got to win the game. I think you got to.
So you're doing anything. So you're leaning towards anything, whatever you have to do. If it means running them as much as possible, like you do that.
Yeah, I do. I think that's kind of the way you got to coach it. You can't, because I think that was part of the problem early on, right? I mean, certainly not in the Ohio State game, like they were calling, like and I know that's something that we lamented that they called that in the red zone. They called that quarterback draw on 3rd and long, right? Like, I don't think that game they were probably thinking, because they were like, we're going to have to run him in these situations. But I think they didn't take that same approach in the Marshall game. And I think that was a mistake. And I understand. See, and here, Michael Ryan right here has a thing. And now I'm about to go off on, he'll never make it through the first quarter if he runs. Where do people come up with this stuff? Like, I'm sorry, Michael, but like the guy gets full body weight, breaks his collarbone, or I think it was collarbone, right? Like,
it's
or shoulder,
like bad shoulder separation.
Yeah. So like, has that ever happened to him at another time too? I know he's had other injuries. So like, yeah, but has he had another injury like that in a game that is because he ran too much? No. Like, that's just, it's nonsensical.
I mean, he didn't have any injury like that in 2021.
No. And he ran it a lot.
And he was a running guy.
And he ran it a lot.
Yeah.
So, and I understand too, how people say like, he hasn't played a lot of football. That's a totally fair criticism of him. But you can't even really say he's injury prone when you're like, well, he missed his sophomore year. That was like 4 years ago. Like, he missed his sophomore year. It was 4 years ago. Then he plays junior. He missed his senior year because of the friggin' pandemic. He wasn't hurt. Like, and he missed one game because he tweaked his hamstring in 2021. That's it. Like, I don't understand. Like, and they didn't. He could have came back in the Virginia Tech game. They just didn't, because Cohen was feeling it, and it was the right move. So people got to get off the injury prone thing, because I don't think that's like a really fair assessment of it. I mean, there's a lot of reason to say that Buckner might not ever be the player that people think he's going to be, but like, that's just,
in my opinion,
completely.
In my opinion, it doesn't even matter, because
no,
whether he is or he isn't, it's honestly, it's like, for this game, it doesn't matter, because he's got to play the way he's got to play regardless. And at this point, like I understand not doing it in practice, because it's practice. You don't want to bang someone in practice. Like, there's no need for that, in my opinion. But it's like, if you're going to be the quarterback at Notre Dame, the way your game is, you got to be able to run the ball and take hits. And if you can't, then you can't, right? If you end up getting hurt, well, then all we can do is play you. You cannot protect him. You cannot go into the game thinking, we're not going to do this because we need to protect him. No, if you feel like if the injury is too far, or it's too close by, then you shouldn't play him. You should go with Angeli.
Yeah.
You cannot be trying to protect him.
Then he can't play him. Then he can't play in the game. Exactly.
Right. If you play him, you play him as if injuries aren't even a factor, because if it's that much of a concern, then you're not going to make it through anyway. He has to be able to play the way whether he's injury prone or not is irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Yeah. They're already bringing in a transfer. It doesn't matter. They're bringing in somebody. So it doesn't matter. You run him. You run him.
And the reason why
so Kevin, I disagree with this. Just don't want design runs. Let him scramble, protect him. No, you can't protect him, because you can't protect your starting quarterback. You can't. His game is his game.
If that's his game.
His game is his game.
That's his game. It's just like how as soon as like RG3, busted his knee, and that was like that for him, that was that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because then he couldn't be the same guy. And fair enough, he wasn't the same guy after, but it was like, there's a reason why it's like, man, no one gave RG3 another chance. It's like, yeah, because the biggest part of his game, it's like, if Lamar Jackson just becomes like, a guy who can't run anymore, guess what? Lamar Jackson is not going to be the MVP anymore. Like, he's not going to get paid a huge amounts of money. Like, and until like Buckner shows that like, oh man, he's just like this guy who's magic in the pocket, like, then you have to play however you got to play. You got to play to win. You got to play to win. And if he's not that guy, fair enough, whatever, right? And he can, and if he he can't stay healthy that way, well, then that's even more reason why you're looking in the portal, right? Like that's part of the thing. I don't think whatever, like you should take people, they should take someone in the portal for reasons that like he's unproven, and because he could get injured. Well, Steve Angeli could get injured. Anybody can get injured, right? Like anything can happen. Quarterback, like, I mean, you're going to get hit a lot. It's a, position. It's a vulnerable position, right? So, and especially if you're a runner, you can get hit quite a bit too, right? But like, you can't just let that be. If all of a sudden you take that off the table, it's like, well, then why is he playing? Because he can't. You're taking out, like, he literally led the country in quarterback yards per carry in 2021. So you're just going to take that off the table? No, you can't. You just can't do it.
Yeah, you have to play it, and it's not that it's like run him into the ground. That's not what I'm saying. Well, it's a disservice to him because it's a skill set that he has. If you take away his skill set, it's like if you're afraid to run Brandon Wimbush, then what do you got? You got to go with someone else, right? And so for me, like that's how I feel about Buckner. Like you can't be afraid to run him. If the moment calls for it, then you do it, right? I think part of it is like Craig D brings up a good point. It's like, where's his conditioning at? He hasn't been playing. Is he physically capable? And that's something they have to manage.
That we don't know.
Yeah, that we're not really sure about. All right, Jamie. I think replacing Foskey is a lot less complicated than replacing Mayer, just because you just put Justin Ademilola in the spot and you have him do it. It's just he's not going to be as explosive, or the upside isn't there. The upside and what you can get won't be there, and you don't have the depth either, so that elevates Jordan Botelho. But do you see there being like a big change in what Notre Dame's trying to do defensively, replacing Isaiah Foskey in this game?
I think there could be, just because I think there could be a little bit on third down, just because one, that is the hardest part to replace him.
Yeah.
Right. So, because he's the guy that obviously you're looking for. You're trying to get a one-on-one with him, and he's the guy you're trying to get off. The best at helping Notre Dame get off the field, right? Because of the impact he makes as pass rusher. And, with that, I think you could see a little bit more 3 down in this game. I think you could start to see like, and I'm not 100% sure. Like, I think we don't know yet on Jason Ademilola's status. I mean, I certainly don't think he's opting out, because we would have heard already that, but I don't know about health-wise how he is. He's been kind of banged up. I hope he plays, to be honest, because not just because he's a good player and you hope he plays, but I just think it would help him personally to come in and have like a good game.
Yeah.
I think it would help his draft status, because he's kind of had a bit of an up and down year, and I think injuries played a pretty big part in that. But like, is there something where you could see like, Ademilola, like Cross and Mills, and then Justin Ademilola kind of playing as like, he's done some of that rushing off the ball. And he's actually been pretty good at that. Or you have something where you have like Justin's playing the edge and he's in that 3 down, and you're using like Botelho as one of those guys. You're using Marist Liufau. You're using, I mean, I don't even want to, I was going to say a name, but then people would overreact. So I'm not going to say the other name of somebody, but could be somebody else too, right? Like that they could use there, but probably not. It's probably going to be one of those other guys. So, like I think there's some of the stuff that they could do there, but really I think it's more of, like you said, Justin Ademilola is going to get elevated. I think because he's been kind of playing some with Foskey, even on in the base defense, he maybe moves over to Viper. Maybe you have him and Botelho on at the same time sometimes, but I think that's probably not what they're going to do. I think more likely that he moves and is the fixture at Viper, and then you have Mills, maybe Aaronsberger gets like elevated in this kind of game.
Yeah. All right.
It's Kevin Simonson. That's it's a third down, not
third down.
They didn't. This is it. This is another one of these rant-worthy things with people they never really ran 3 down this year on early downs. Like they did it a little bit in the USC game, and they just it was basically 4 down because they just blitzed, and like some of what we were talking about before with Marist, where they're just blitzing and plugging a gap, and it was essentially 4 down. Yeah.
All right, let's end it with this question, Patrick Hennessy. With the linebacker-oriented cadre we had, why the poor linebacker group performance? I am kind of like really subscribed to the third defense in 3 years, new system, new like that stuff. I think that has been underplayed, even by like me personally. And by others too. Like, I think that's a pretty big factor for that group, which there's a lot of responsibility at linebacker. There's so much involved in playing that position. And I think third defensive coordinator in 3 years, I think it took a toll on all of them. And so I think next year is going to be, I would expect it to be much better. It's like a year later, just kind of had a whole year, get to run it back and that sort of thing. So that's how I come out. Like, just in general, right? Like, no, without getting into the nitty gritty, I just think, given all that's there, I just think there was a lot for those guys.
Yeah, I think that's so. And Andrew brings up a point too, the linebacker coach as well, right? It's a different, and it's one thing to be like, you can have all the great linebacker coaches you want, and Notre Dame certainly had a lot of guys who coach linebackers on the staff this year. But James Laurinaitis is probably telling you something different than what Clark Lee was telling him a couple years ago. So it's just that is an adjustment and something that it's not nothing. I also think Marist Liufau basically went from not really playing a lot to all of a sudden he has to play all the time. And some of it, I think too, I don't think he's quite the same guy that he was before his ankle injury. Maybe he still will get back to that. And then the other part is like, I think, he missed reps, even though he's technically in his 4th year. He really didn't have a lot of reps, and then I think even then too, like you look like losing a guy like Bo Bauer, maybe it doesn't seem he wasn't playing a ton, but you do miss a guy like that.
Yeah.
Because you can count on him, right? You can count on him. And then I still think too, like with say like the freshmen, it's just very hard for freshman linebackers. How many like great freshman linebackers were there across the country? Like 2. Like there's just not a lot, right? It's very, very hard. It's a hard adjustment for especially for a guy like Jalen Sneed, who's played like multiple positions. Nolan Ziegler, a guy who like basically was a safety. That's I mean, even like Junior Tuihalamaka is basically the only guy who was like a regular full-time linebacker that they recruited. And even him, it's like, I mean, it's an adjustment. It's a big adjustment.
Yeah. All right. We're going to leave it there for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Be on alert. This is the time to be on alert we could just go live at any point, like tomorrow or Saturday or something. Something might come up and we're going to go live and talk about it. So you're going to want to hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell when we're going live. Maybe there's not a ton of notice on the next one. So you're going to want to stay locked in for that. Head to irishsportsdaily.com. Check out all the latest information. Ton of good info coming from Matt on Peyton Bowen, for example, and some other things too. So you're going to want to check that out. If not, we will be back next week, probably next Tuesday. And, more stuff, right? More portal stuff, more recruiting. Wednesday is the early signing day. So we'll see what we can, what content we can crank out for that as well. So probably do a live show then. So you're going to want to tune in. once more, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend, and we will talk to you very, very soon.